I trusted her like breathing. She hugged me tight that morning, kissed my forehead, and said, "It's just a quick conference. I'll be back Sunday." She sounded ordinary, calm, the kind of calm that makes you breathe easier. I watched her drive away and told myself the same thing I always tell myself. People we love don't lie about the small, obvious things, right? But a quiet knot started deep in my chest that night. A tiny voice I shoved down because I had a life to run and bills to pay and a marriage I believed in. 3 days later, my phone rang at noon. It was the hotel. "Sir, housekeeping found a USB stick lodged in the vent of room 612. The voice said, flat and polite. My mouth went dry. "We think it might belong to your wife's room." My wife had told me she was in 612. Her laughter on FaceTime the week before, the late-night texts about meetings and meals, all those small, ordinary details suddenly felt like pieces of something else. I was suddenly looking for seams where I hadn't expected them. When I went to the hotel, the whole place smelled like detergent and hot coffee. The security guard handed me a small, black USB wrapped in a paper towel. It looked innocent, like a thing anyone would use to move a report or a slideshow. But the way it had been hidden, shoved into the vent, under dust and a dryer of stale air, it felt like evidence, like it had been left on purpose. My hand shook. I didn't want to look, and I couldn't stop myself. What would I find? Emails? Photos? Proof that everything I thought was steady with a lie. I didn't open it that night. I drove home with the USB in my pocket like a stone. At the kitchen table, I turned it over, thinking about what to do. Confront her? Call the man I suspected? Go to the hotel? My head buzzed with 1,000 small, crushing what-ifs. I thought about revenge, about justice, about the way some things break quietly and some things explode. I thought, too, about the other woman I had heard whispers about, his wife. If she knew, maybe she could stop him. Maybe she'd already suspected. Maybe she'd been blindsided by the same smooth lies. So I did something I never imagined doing. I wrapped the USB in a plain envelope and mailed it, not to my wife, but to his wife. No note, no return address, just proof shoved into her hands so she could decide. I wanted the truth to go where it might hurt him most, but I also wanted someone else to carry the weight of the answers. I felt sick doing it. I felt strangely calm. I told myself this was the right thing. I told myself I was acting, not reacting. 2 days later, I was half ready to forget the whole thing when my phone vibrated. A message popped up from an unknown number. It showed a photo of an envelope on a kitchen counter, the USB peeking out, and a single line of text beneath. Who sent this? My hands went cold. Then another message arrived, a tracking link marked delivered. I stared at the link, at the tiny blue tick that meant the package had reached its destination. My throat tightened. I was about to click the link when the screen flashed again with one more message. And this one wasn't a question. It was a single file name. The file name on my screen felt like a punch. Room_612_2025-11-12 Simple, clinical, nothing poetic. My mind filled in the blanks faster than the truth ever could. That date matched the weekend she'd said she'd be at a conference. Room 612 was the room the hotel had told me about. I stared at the letters until they blurred. My fingers hovered over the link, then trembled away. I had mailed the USB to his wife to force the truth into someone else's hands, and now somehow the truth was sending a quiet, precise reply back to me. What was on that file? Notes? Names? A timestamp? I felt both terrified and strangely awake, like I'd been asleep at the wheel, and someone had just nudged the car. We weren't always walking on glass. We met at a small coffee shop, the kind of place where the barista knew our orders before we said them. She was laughing at something on her phone, and I asked to hear the joke. We talked for hours that afternoon about stupid movies and childhood dogs and how badly we both want a garden one day. We fell into each other's lives like two pieces of a puzzle you didn't know were missing. We married in a small ceremony with our parents and 2 close friends. We promised to be honest. We meant it. For the first few years, honesty felt easy. We were young, tired, and in love. The ordinary things, groceries, bills, shared playlists, made up the scaffolding of us. Then work changed things. She started traveling more for meetings and conferences, the kind of events that came with late dinners and awkward schedules. At first, I tried to be supportive, proud even. I learned to make coffee the way she liked it and to send her silly videos in the middle of her day. But small habits crept in that didn't fit the old picture. Calls that ended when I walked into the room, a password she guarded too closely, a calendar event that said off-site and nothing else. There were receipts I didn't recognize, and once I found a lipstick mark on a napkin in the glove box. I didn't know what to do with that napkin. I didn't want to own the ache it brought up, so I folded it into a drawer and pretended laundry could swallow it. We tried to talk when it became too loud to ignore, but our talks often turned into fog. She would apologize for being distant and promise to try harder. I would try to say how the late nights made me feel small and unmoored, and she'd look at me with tired eyes and promise we were fine. The words "we are fine" started to mean less and less. Trust isn't a single moment. It's 1,000 tiny choices made every day. And when enough of those choices go missing, you begin to question the whole foundation. I kept waiting for something clear and obvious, proof I could hold, because feelings are slippery and a good explanation can make them make sense. The USB in the vent felt like that proof, or the closest thing to it. Even as doubt grew, there were flashes of the old life that made me freeze with longing. Her humming while she cooked, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the late-night whisper of "I love you," like it was a secret just for me. Those moments made me sabotage my own suspicion. I wanted so badly to be the person who trusted without needing evidence. But the USB forced me out of that wishful thinking. The file name sitting on my phone was a breadcrumb that led straight back to the hotel, to that weekend, and to a night I had not witnessed. I told myself not to open it without a plan, but plans feel thin when everything else is frayed. I was about to click when the house phone rang, loud and sudden, like a hand on a red button. At the same time, I heard my neighbor's dog bark 3 times, like a warning. I picked up the phone, and a voice I didn't recognize said only one line before the call cut. "We need to talk about room 612. Then the line went dead. My thumb hovered over the file link, and the house felt too quiet. I should have known better than to let a single file name decide everything. But my heart had already started to respond to the pull. The call that cut off left a buzzing under my skin. I sat down hard and hit the file again, then stopped, a voice in my head screaming, "Don't," another whispering, "You have to know." I put the phone down and walked the house, touching familiar things as if they might explain themselves. Her scarf on the chair, the dent in the couch where she liked to curl up, the calendar with little notes in her handwriting. Each thing was a small proof of the life we built, and each one suddenly felt fragile. I wanted to ask her a simple question and trust the answer. Instead, I felt like I was approaching a closed door with no key. My neighbor, Carlos, texted, "Hey man, you okay? Saw you at the hotel yesterday." I hadn't told anyone I went there. How would he know? He said his wife works with hotel catering sometimes and had seen me speaking with security. That small connection opened a new worry. Was someone watching me? Was the hotel involved in something more than a lost USB? I called Carlos and he said, "Bro, don't do anything stupid. Let her explain." His voice was steady, but I heard judgment under it, and that made me angry. How do you explain fear without it sounding like a charge? I thought about calling my sister, but she'd always been the one to say, give her the benefit of the doubt. My sister believed in people's better selves, and maybe that's why she's so calm. "You don't know what's on that thing," she said when I finally told her. "Don't act like you do." But how do you live with that not knowing? It's a slow pressure, a fog that makes everything taste wrong. Meanwhile, the unknown number kept messaging. Short lines that could be from anyone. "Did you send it? We need to meet. Not safe to open." I tried tracing the number and got nothing. The tracking link said the package had been delivered to an address I recognized only as his. The man my wife sometimes mentioned, a client she called Mark at work. He was married, at least according to the messages I'd seen, and his name had come up in midnight conversations that always ended with work stuff. What if Mark's wife had already opened it and chosen to do nothing? What if she called my wife and lied about finding it? I couldn't tell which option hurt more. I imagined Mark's wife sitting at her kitchen table, the USB in front of her, a coffee gone cold. What would she think when she saw it? What would she do if she loved the man she married but suspected betrayal? I pictured her opening a drawer full of receipts and photos like I had and feeling the same sick twist. Or I pictured her folding the proof into silence because breaking a family is too heavy. The unknown number's photo showed the envelope on a counter, not opened, and that image replayed in my head like a question I couldn't answer. At home, my wife texted a simple, "Everything okay?" I could have replied and lied. I could have said the USB was nothing, a lost work file. Instead, I typed and deleted a dozen sentences. I thought about confronting her, about saying, "Did you put a USB in the vent?" and watching her face change. Would she laugh? Would she cry? Would she tell me a story that made sense and put this all to rest? Or would she shut down the way she had before and leave me with more silence? In the middle of that night, there was a knock at the door. My heart slammed. I opened it and found an envelope slid under the frame. No stamp, no name. Inside was a single printed line, "Don't open anything yet." I looked up into the dark street, where a figure stood across the road and then disappeared around a corner. I held the paper like a lifeline and felt the tension snap tighter. Someone else was in this story, but which side were they on? I went back to the hotel with a USB in my pocket and a plan that felt brittle. The lobby smelled the same, lemon cleaner, old carpet, but my heart pounded like it was in a different place. I told the front desk I needed to see security footage from room 612 the night in question. The clerk hesitated, then called downstairs. A man in a navy jacket met me in a small office with a monitor and a stack of blank incident forms. His name was Raj, and he said he'd been at the desk that weekend. "Why do you want to see it?" he asked, polite but firm. I said the truth. I needed to know whether my wife had been alone in her room or not. He blinked and then said something that made my throat close, that privacy rules were tight, but maybe housekeeping logs could help. Housekeeping? That felt like a small, desperate hope. Raj packed a cup of coffee and pushed a USB into my palm, a copy of the footage he'd pulled under the table, furtive and shaky. We watched it in my car because privacy was a joke when the stakes were this high. The footage was grainy, washed in hallway light, but my stomach dropped. At 11:42 p.m., a figure opened room 612 and walked in. It could have been her, the way the coat moved. It could have been anyone. The resolution was bad. 10 minutes later, someone else came to the door. He lingered, conversation visible only in the way their heads tilted. One of them reached into a jacket pocket and a small object glinted. Could have been a key. Could have been a USB. Then the person left. Nothing else. No clear faces. No clean answers. I rewound and paused and stared until my eyes blurred. The clip gave me more questions than proof, but also gave me momentum. The unknown number texted again. "Meet me. Diner on Maple. 8 p.m. The number had been the one that sent the photo of the envelope earlier. I debated calling my sister, my neighbor, anyone. Instead, I went, because every call felt like a delay. At the diner, a woman sat in the corner with a paper cup and tired hands. She looked up when I came in, and for a second, I thought she might be him, Mark's wife, before my brain corrected the image into a person with her own grief. Her name was Anna. She had the USB on the table between us, wrapped in a napkin. "I got your package," she said, voice low. Her eyes moved like she was measuring me, deciding how much to give. I opened it. I found things. I didn't know what to do. She didn't say what was on it, and that silence landed like a stone. Instead, she told me she had found a string of text messages on her husband's phone the week before, short, vague, then deleted. She said she'd seen him slipping out for work calls at odd hours, but he'd told her he was traveling for a client. Everything sounded like the same sad song I knew too well. "I couldn't believe it," she said, rubbing the rim of her cup. I didn't want to believe it. Her hand shook. She told me she hadn't shown him the USB yet. She was waiting for a moment when she could ask and hear an answer she could live with. I looked at her and saw myself reflected. Two people holding instruments of truth and unsure which way they would cut. We decided to try confronting Mark together. We followed him one night to a small apartment above a dry cleaner. He wasn't what I expected. Not loud, not swaggering. He looked tired, like a man with too many small regrets. I watched him through the car window as Anna touched my arm and whispered, If he's guilty, I want him to know I know. My throat closed. I wanted that too, but even as the plan took shape, my mind threw up more doubts. What if he was only a friend? What if the USB was something else entirely, planted by someone with a grudge? What if I was about to destroy a life based on a grainy clip and a feeling? We followed him up the stairs and stood in the shadow of the landing. The hallway light buzzed. The door was ajar. I could see Mark's silhouette moving inside, and my heart beat so loud I was sure he could hear it. Anna's hand squeezed mine. I swallowed and stepped forward, and then the phone in my pocket buzzed with a new message from the unknown number. It read, "Don't go in." I froze on the landing with that message glowing against my leg. "Don't go in." My breath caught, and I stepped back like someone had yanked a string inside my chest. Anna frowned. "What's wrong?" I showed her the screen. Her face drained, and for a second we both stood in that narrow hallway, listening to the faint sounds coming from inside the apartment. Footsteps, a drawer closing, a low voice on the phone. We weren't imagining things. Someone knew exactly where we were and what we were about to do. Someone was watching us. "Who's sending you these?" Anna whispered. I shook my head. "I don't know, but they knew about the envelope, and now this." She swallowed hard and backed away from the door. The air felt heavier, like something unseen was pushing us. We started down the stairs, moving fast but quiet. At the bottom step, my phone buzzed again. A new message. This one wasn't a warning. It was a picture. Room 612. The hallway. The exact angle of the grainy footage Raj had shown me. Only this image was clear. High resolution. Clean edges. And, standing at the door, half turned toward the camera, was not my wife. It was me. My own face, blurred in the hotel security video, was now crystal clear in the new picture. My same jacket. My same tired posture. My hand reached for the doorknob of room 612, like I belonged there. I felt something drop inside me, like the ground gave out. Anna covered her mouth. "That's you, how? Why were you there?" Her voice cracked like glass. "I wasn't," I whispered, but I wasn't even sure anymore. I had no memory of being at that hotel on that night. I tried to think, could I have driven there? Did I forget? No. No way. "This is edited," I said, but the words sounded weak. My mind raced through every possibility, every explanation that wasn't insane. Who would frame me? Who would even want to? Then another image came through. This one was of a different angle, from inside the room. A shadowed figure enters. Same jacket, same build, same hair. And on the desk inside the room, in that snapshot, was the USB. The same black piece of plastic I had mailed. My stomach twisted. If this picture was real, the USB was placed there before I ever saw it, which meant someone wanted it found. Someone wanted me involved. Someone wanted this entire thing to look like a loop that led back to me. Anna grabbed my arm. Why would someone send me this? Why send anything to me if she didn't finish? She didn't need to. We both knew the implications sat between us like a trap waiting to snap. My thoughts churned. If someone else had been in that room pretending to be me, then who? And why hide a USB in the vent? Why send it to his wife? Why drag me into this? And what did my wife actually know about that night? The questions came too fast, too sharp. Anna whispered, "Do you think? Does your wife know something?" The words hit me like a slap. I wanted to say no immediately, but something stopped me. A memory. A small, stupid moment from 2 months earlier. She had washed my jacket even though I told her not to, even though I said my wallet was still in the pocket. She said she forgot. She smiled and brushed it off. I didn't think anything of it then. But right now, that memory burned hot. Before I could speak, headlights flashed across the street. A dark car slowed near the curb where we stood. The window rolled down just a little. A voice I couldn't see said, "Both of you, get in, now." My phone buzzed again at the same moment. One final message arriving with a cold, sharp ring. Ask her what she was hiding in her jacket. My legs felt like they were locked in place, but something in the voice coming from the car made it impossible to ignore. It wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It sounded exhausting, almost pleading. Anna looked at me with wide eyes, then we both climbed in. The back seat smelled like old air freshener and stress. The driver wore a cap low over his face, hands tight on the wheel. He didn't speak until he pulled into an empty parking lot behind a closed pharmacy. "You think you're being clever," he said quietly. "You think you're the only ones who've been lied to." His voice cracked, and when he turned around, the dim light finally revealed his face. It was Mark. Anna gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. He looked nothing like the confident man we'd followed earlier. This version was pale, shaken, like he'd been awake for days. He passed me a folded piece of paper with trembling fingers. "I didn't cheat on her," he said, voice rough. "I didn't cheat on anyone. You need to understand that before things get even worse." I unfolded the paper. It wasn't a receipt. It wasn't a photo. It was a report, a security incident log from the hotel. My eyes scanned the lines, each word cutting deeper. Room 612 accessed by an unauthorized staff member. USB recovered containing private financial files belonging to multiple clients. Possible whistleblower leak. Possible identity framing. I read it twice before the meaning hit me. "Financial files?" I asked, my voice barely sounding like mine. Mark nodded. "Confidential contracts, client payouts, fake bonuses. Someone was stealing from our firm. Someone who knew both of us, our schedules, our passwords, our routines." He dragged his hand across his face. "Someone who knew you'd panic if you thought your wife was hiding something. Someone who knew I'd panic if my wife got proof of anything." My chest tightened. "So, this wasn't about them? About an affair?" "No," he shouted, startling himself. "You were never the target. Neither was she. Or my wife. The real target was us, the people who signed those contracts." His eyes locked on mine. "We were set up." My stomach dropped. "By who?" He didn't answer with words. He handed me something else, a small photo, slightly bent at the corner. A woman standing near a conference booth, smiling politely. My wife. But behind her, barely in frame, was a man leaning close, whispering something to her. A man I recognized instantly. Her supervisor. He was the one who'd pushed her into late-night trips. The one who insisted she keep her work off-site. The one who told her to use encrypted drives. He was also the one who had access to every digital file we'd seen. "He used her badge to enter rooms," Mark said. "He used your jacket, your spare one, from her office coat rack to match your build on the security camera. He planted the USB, then sent it to my wife to blow up my life. He sent you doctored footage to break yours." My breath went cold. Why would he do all this? Mark looked straight into my eyes, his voice shaking. "Because your wife found out." My heart slammed. "Found out what?" "That he was moving money through fake accounts," he said. "She confronted him once. She thought he backed off, but he didn't. He made a new plan, blame us." He leaned forward. "She wasn't hiding an affair. She was hiding evidence. She put in your jacket because she didn't know where else was safe." My head spun. Every moment of doubt, every late-night ache, every question, all of it suddenly shifted into a new shape that terrified me even more. Anna whispered, "So what happened that night in the hotel?" Mark swallowed hard. "She met someone she trusted. Someone she thought could help her. Someone who promised to keep her safe." "Who?" I asked. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight. "The same person who sent you those messages." My phone buzzed. One new message appeared on the screen, and my throat closed when I read it. "Open the door. She needs you." When I read those words on my screen, something inside me snapped into focus. All the confusion, fear, anger, it all suddenly lined up, pointing to one place. I stepped out of Mark's car with my heart beating so hard it felt like a warning and a push at the same time. Anna stayed behind, whispering a shaky "be careful," while Mark pressed his palms to the steering wheel like he was praying for all of us. The cold air hit my face as I walked toward the entrance the message had pinned on the map. It was an old storage building behind the same hotel where everything started. A light flickered above the door. For a second, I wondered if this was another trap, another twist meant to break me. But the thought of my wife needing me dragged me forward. I pushed open the door, breathed unsteady, and found her sitting on a chair in the corner, hugging her arms like she was trying to hold herself together. When she looked up and saw me, her whole face crumbled. "I'm sorry," she whispered before I could say anything. "I didn't mean for any of this to touch you." I knelt in front of her, my voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me? Why hide everything from me?" She took a long, painful breath and finally spoke the truth that had been sitting under everything. Her supervisor had pressured her for months to help him manage files. At first, she didn't understand what was wrong. Then she saw the accounts, the names that didn't match, the payments that fell off. When she confronted him quietly, he smiled and told her to forget it. When she tried to report it, he reminded her that he knew everything about us, our finances, our routines, even our arguments. She didn't want to drag me into something dangerous, so she gathered proof on her own, storing it on that USB. She hid it in my jacket because she worried someone from her office might search her things. She booked the conference trip because a coworker she trusted said she could meet an external firm there who helped with fraud cases. But the supervisor realized too early. He followed her. He switched badges. He planted that USB in the vent to make her look guilty if she ever talked. Then he tried framing me when he saw me at the hotel later, piecing random security clips to make it look like I'd been there that night. "I didn't cheat," she said, voice breaking. "I didn't betray you. I was trying to protect you, and I know I should have trusted you instead of carrying this alone." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't tell you because I was scared you'd look at me differently, like I was a problem you had to fix." I felt a long, deep ache in my chest, but it wasn't anger anymore. It was the weight of two people who had been hurting alone when they should have faced everything together. I took her hands. "You should have trusted me," I said softly. "But I also should have asked instead of assuming the worst." Right then, the door opened and detectives stepped in with Mark behind them. He had finally reported the fraud with the evidence he'd buried for too long. My wife handed over the file she'd saved. It was enough to open a full investigation. Her supervisor was taken into custody the same night. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten, that soft blue before sunrise. My wife and I stood there quietly, the storm finally breaking around us. She leaned into me, shaky but honest. "Do you still want this thus?" she whispered. I wrapped my arm around her, not because everything was fixed, but because I could finally see the truth clearly. "Yes," I said, "but we rebuilt together. No more hiding. No more fear." We went home side by side, tired and bruised, but still choosing each other. Trust didn't magically reappear, but a new understanding did. One built on honesty, not guesses. And as we walked inside, I realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes the real danger isn't the lie someone tries to trap you in, it's the silence we create ourselves. The lesson stayed with me. Love survives not because it avoids storms, but because two people decide to walk through them together, hand in hand, with truth leading the way.